And, okay.
Sorry.
This one.
Gotcha. Okay. The double tap this way. Sure, sir.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready to get started. Call the meeting to order at 2:39. If you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancellery or Circuit Courts. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Per the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, Public Chapter Number 300, members of the public are invited to provide comments on matters germane to the items on the agenda. First order of business is to approve the agenda. There's a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Second item is the approval of the minutes from last month. Any questions? Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Number 4, public comment. Okay, I have 4 people, and when you come up, please remember, only press the button one time, the button that has a figure, the illustration of a person on it. Press the button one time. State your name. The first person I have is Jim Wallerster, I believe. Wallerstein. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Again, when you turn the mic on.
There we go.
State your name for the record, please. Sir.
My name is Jim Wallerstein. I'm the assistant property manager at the Icon in the Gulch condominium building. And I just came here. I got an email from my councilman. We had several residents that live on Magazine Street had come to me because a bunch of the deliveries that come in the middle of the night for the restaurants are these refrigerated trucks that are extremely noisy that come at like 4 o'clock in the morning and are very disruptive. So I saw that there was a motion to limit the loading hours on Magazine Street. So I want to say I think that would be a really good thing and would definitely improve the quality of several of the Gulch residents' lives.
Any council members have anything to say to that? Okay.
I've got a consolidated statement later for unnumbered matters.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The second person I have is Robert Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, come on up.
My name is Robert Kelly.
Turn on the mic for me, please, sir.
Got it. You just said this to me. Boom. We got it? Oh, I hear it.
State your name for the record, please.
Robert Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I live in Germantown. Last night, Dot Dobbins was struck and killed while crossing a marked crosswalk on 3rd Avenue North. She was doing what any pedestrian is encouraged to do, using city infrastructure that suggests it's safe to cross. But that infrastructure is a false promise if there's no enforcement or protection behind it. I've lived with this tension for years. Crossing Jefferson Street in particular, there are several crosswalks, at least 2 along that street where folks coming off of the Jefferson Street Bridge are legitimately going 65 miles an hour when they hit 3 greens in a row, flying down. And so it's they fly through with zero regard for public safety. It's chaos. There's no enforcement. The city is effectively lulling people into a false sense of security. Crosswalks, as they stand today, are unprotected and unenforced, and now they're proving fatal. If there's no plan to enforce traffic laws and protect pedestrians, remove the crosswalks. Don't make people think they're safe and then get hit by a car speeding down the street. That's you guys' responsibility. I want them to be made safe personally with serious enforcement, whether police present some of the time or cameras, traffic calming in high-speed corridors, particularly on Jefferson and 3rd Avenue. There's a city park with a dog park right on the other side of this 3rd Avenue development that they've done in Germantown. And that's clearly a corridor where people are gonna be walking with their dogs. And I guarantee you Dot was walking with her dog. It shouldn't be optional. If this commission has the authority to approve traffic measures, it also bears the responsibility for what happens when they fail. People are dying. We need action now. Thank you.
The next person to come up is Todd Roman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Todd Roman, and I represent Play Tribe, Susie Wong's, and the Big Drag Bus, and would like to request that the zoning or consideration be deferred removed from consent and deferred.
Thank you. And the last person we have is Misty Keenan, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the last name incorrectly.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Is it on?
No, one tap.
Okay, sorry. I'm Misty Keenan. I am the property manager for 2214 Ashwood, 12th Avenue. I had proposed a loading zone request because we continuously have problems with our new development of delivery trucks parking in the center of the street. We had Emmanuel come out and he was able to identify that exact issue that we're having. A couple months ago, we actually had a delivery park in the middle of the street and they held up a school bus. We had police out there. And so the reason why we wanted the loading zone request, and I know it's your recommendation to deny that, is that so we don't prevent those things from backing up. The property was not required to put in a loading dock on the property. It was not a requirement of the property project. And so therefore, we are finding that these deliveries are getting stopped in the middle of the street. And so that was one of the requests that we're having. We're not asking for this to be a 24-hour, 7 days a week loading zone. We're just asking from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. I've gotten all of my tenants to adhere to that delivery time as best as they can, so we don't prevent these issues on 12th Avenue South going forward. I know that this development is not the only one that is having the same issue, and so I'm just asking to alleviate issues and traffic issues going forward, not just for our development, but people traveling that path during the day, schools, everything else. We don't have anywhere else to load and unload. Unfortunately, we have a fire lane, which we have gotten several of our delivery trucks, they've gotten ticketed and fined for because of that. They've used in the past. We have an alley behind us, which is not feasible either because it blocks in residents. So I just ask you guys to reconsider your recommendation and to approve it.
And where's the loading zone at again that you want?
It is on 12th Avenue South, directly across the street from our property, and we're asking for, I think it's 2 or 3 spaces that is already current designated for parking. We're just, again, asking from a 6 a.m. to a 9 a.m. time period, 7 days a week for our tenants to be able to load safely and not block traffic.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to try to consolidate 3 different agenda items into one comment. So supportive
Your
of
name again,
the,
please, sir.
Jacob Coopin, councilperson for District 19. Apologies, I'm a little off my game this morning. Supportive of the loading zone on Magazine Street. You've heard from my constituent there. And I intended to come to you today to speak in favor of a deferral for the Play Nightclub. It's important for us to work with them and neighborhood partners on making sure the roads are as safe as possible. They've got some safety concerns removing loading zones, and I think it's really important for us to consider that. I'm going to try to hold this together, but I'm here today for Dot. Dot is a dear friend. She is a dog walker in Germantown. She lived in Germantown Commons, a co-housing development. She couldn't have been more Nashvilleian. And she was walking her dog in a crosswalk across the street to a brand new dog park that the Metro Water Services recently put in. She should have been safe. And an individual flying through that intersection hit and killed her on last night. And I had been working for months with the Department of Transportation on raised crosswalks and other safety infrastructure there. This is something we knew was an issue, and very thankfully to the department's work, this was approved last week. Unfortunately, that was too late for Dot. I know we work really hard, and y'all work really hard to balance restrictions and regulations with actual safety experiences. And just last week, I was telling my constituents that I couldn't get them stop signs in areas that would make them more safe because of a manual that says you need 5 crashes to put stop signs in. And I appreciate this commission and kind of the balance y'all have taken on following the MUTCD, but also making sure we're building safe infrastructure. And I know this is something not just in the core of our city, but throughout But I did say, because there were so many residents that wanted to be here to speak about this, but I got a letter from Gina Brown, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read it. She said, a light went out in the Germantown neighborhood last night. Dot was a Germantowner that most would recognize if they're out and about. But if you had dogs, you likely met Dot. You realize quickly her curiosity, kindness, and sense of community. The crosswalk on 3rd Avenue South between Van Buren and Hume was striped with good intentions, but the heavy flow of traffic on 3rd Avenue makes this crosswalk terribly unsafe without more stop signs and perhaps signage to alert of a crosswalk ahead. So many neighbors I spoke with today who were in shock and sadness over Dot's passing soon became enraged when they realized where the accident took place. Most have had an experience at this crosswalk or seen the issues that have multiplied in recent years. I would guess Dot's fate could sadly be a mix of a few things, but all preventable. All Nashville crosswalks need proper signage to alert of the crosswalk and to slow traffic. We can't just trust drivers, we must be able to rely on advanced notifications to alert a pedestrian's crossing. Dot should be walking her beloved dog today. Light up the street, light up the notifications, and my goodness, do everything you can, which I know you all do, to slow people down so no other neighbor leaves us this way. And so I just ask that today and in the future, and please know that I know you all are already working so hard on this, but please think of Dot and so many others who have lost their lives in these types of crashes as we continue to work together to make Nashville's roads safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read over the approval for a consent agenda. The items are 5 in number. 5.1, CD 21, authorization for a new pedestrian hybrid beacon at 2207 Clarksville Pike, requested by NDOT. 5.2, CD 19, authorization for a new multi-stop control at Hume Street and 4th Avenue, requested by NDOT. 5.3 CD 19, authorization to remove existing loading zone on south side of Broadway between 19th Street and Lyle Avenue and extend the existing no parking zone on Broadway on both sides of Lyle Avenue to West End Avenue, requested by NDOT. 5.4 CD 19, authorization to remove existing loading zone on south side of Church Street west of McMillan Street and replace with a new no parking or standing anytime from 15th Avenue to 16th Avenue, requested by NDOT. And I have a note here that we want to defer that for a month. 5.5 CD 19, authorization for revised time for existing loading zone / pay parking on both sides of Magazine Street, north of Division Street, loading zone 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., 7 days a week, pay parking all other times, requested by NDOT. Are any of these, go ahead.
Do we need to remove 5.4 from consent in order to defer it?
Yes.
Okay, then I'd like to remove 5.4 from consent.
Okay. So for consent, we're going to be voting on 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.5. Are there any items that we want to pull out to move to the regular agenda?
I'm sorry, Vice Chair, did you say 5.3?
5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.5 are what we're going to be potentially voting on. I'm asking now, are any of these items need to be pulled out and moved into the regular agenda for further discussion?
I would like to request that 5.3 be
Okay,
removed. Thank you, Vice Chair.
so now we're at 5.1, 5.2, and 5.5. Can I have a motion? Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Okay, so we're going to move 5.3 to the regular agenda, and 5.4 we're going to defer for 1 month. I'm sorry?
We'd have to make the deferral.
Okay, then I'll take a motion to defer 5.4 for 1 month. And I need a second. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Okay, so I'm going to take 5.3 as the first item for the regular agenda, and I'll read over it again, and then we can have discussion on it. 5.3 CD 19, authorization to remove existing loading zone on south side of Broadway between 19th Avenue and Lyle Avenue and extend the existing no parking zone on Broadway on both sides of Lyle Avenue to West End, requested by NDOT. Go ahead.
My opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And thank you all for agreeing to move this to the regular agenda to allow for some conversation. I am very familiar with this area, and I support the recommendation, and actually very happy to see the recommendation. I do want to make a comment, if I may, and it's pursuant to also a crosswalk that it has recently been striped at Lyle and Broadway. I don't believe there is a stop sign here. This is located right at the new Broadview residential housing for Vanderbilt, as well as the newly opened turnip truck. So it is already a high vehicular and pedestrian crossing. With the recommendation of the removal of the no parking areas to allow for 2 lanes of travel, which again I support. Obviously, there will be more traffic coming through here. So my comment or suggestion would be for NDOT to look at perhaps adding a beacon light here. I also was in contact with staff prior to the meeting to suggest looking at the crossings all the way up to 21st Avenue. So while the recommendation calls for Lyle to West End on Broadway, I would suggest that we look all the way up to 21st. I personally have observed many pedestrians crossing traffic without using a crosswalk because there is a large gap, almost 2 blocks without a crosswalk. And again, this is very heavy pedestrian with the bars on Broadway and Division, the students that live in the Broadview, and the patrons who are going to the turnip truck. Grocery store.
I thank you for bringing this up. This is an area of town I'm really familiar in. I have been hanging out in some capacity in this part of town since probably 1996, and it has always felt like Frogger from Division to Lyle to get across the street. And so I just would encourage you to listen to what my co-committee member has said, commission member has said, so that we can make this area safer, because there's a lot of foot traffic through here, and it's not safe.
And Vice Chair, if I may add, thank you, Council Member, for your support on that. If I may add, this is also a pathway for all EMS vehicles that are going to Vanderbilt Medical Center. Which adds more activity, obviously, on this block, these blocks. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair. I did have one more comment. So I understand the trolley stop will be removed. Is that part of the request?
Yes.
Okay. Just if I could ask also NDOT to be mindful of, in addition to the trolley stop, there are other EVs, party buses, et cetera, that do stop along here for drop-off pickup. It's not unusual to see them pulled up along the curb. So I would just ask that we pay attention to enforcement, unrelated to the trolley stop.
want to give staff a chance to add any input here?
Thank you. Andrew Smith, NDOT. I appreciate your concerns about the two-way stop at Broadway and Lyle. And while I was listening to what you were saying there, I thought, we have the capability of moving LiDAR equipment and looking at, I'd like to have some data at that intersection. So I would appreciate the opportunity to schedule LiDAR equipment to be set up there. And so we can look and see what exactly do we have in the way of pedestrian movements there. One of the previous items on the agenda was up on Clarksville Pike, where we're able to see pedestrian activity and we can see near misses. I'd like the opportunity to collect that data and make our evaluations from there. So if this is a candidate for changes in stop control there or signal or whatever, let us evaluate that and we'll come back to you with that request.
I think that's great, and certainly the data will help. I would suggest that it would include not just Lyle and Broadway, but all the way up. I have plenty of photos on my phone of pedestrians crossing right into the street because there are no crossings. Thank you.
CD 5.3, 5.3 CD 19, okay. Authorization to remove existing loading zone on south side of Broadway between 19th Street and Lyle, and to extend the existing no parking on Broadway on both sides from Lyle Avenue to West End, and it was requested by NDOT. All those in favor, I'll ask for a motion.
Well, can we move to approve and for a re-report in, say, 5 months? Does that give you enough time to get the LiDAR data so we can know what's going on? Okay, so I would move to approve and for a re-report in 5 months.
So you're moving to approve it, but it comes back again?
Yeah, just with the updates.
Okay, okay.
We can provide you with that and we can certainly do that within 5 months.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and have it come back in 5 months for another report. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, in that 5-month time period, can you also look at extending up to 21st Street?
I know who to ask, so we will get the ball rolling on that. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now we're going to go into the regular items on the agenda. 6.1, NDOT report on special events.
We pulled off two from the?
I'm sorry?
We pulled off 2 items from the consent agenda? Or do we?
We had, let's see.
Where do you?
5.4 was deferred, and then 5.3.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. Okay. So again, 6.1, NDOT report on special event parking fee waiver. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Matias. I'm with NDOT. So every June, we try to bring to you a list of standing special events. This year, pretty much the same thing as last year, with the exception of the Open Street Summer Series. So we are requesting for parking fee waivers on the events of July 4th, New Year's Eve, People Loving Nashville, and the Open Street Summer Series for the fiscal year 2026.
Any questions?
You expected I would ask a question?
Well, you have your light on.
Vice Chair, yes. A little hit. Just a clarification for, as a new commissioner, if I may, the amount of potential waiver and lost revenue to Metro is outlined for People Loving Nashville and the Open Street Summer Series. Do we have that same information for New Year's Eve and 4th of July?
We have the number of spaces for New Year's Eve, which is around 150 to 250 spaces. And if you would multiply it by $35 daily fee, which is the current rate of the curb, then that would bring us to $7,000, I believe. And July 4th is somewhere in that range as well. I think what we'll do next year is to ensure that we'll have the amounts noted on the staff analysis report. I apologize for not having all of them.
That's okay. Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your numbers.
My calculation for New Year's Eve was around 7,000. And July 4th around the same.
Thank you.
We just had two rather large events over the last couple of months. Do those fall under this, or do they pay for their own fees? So that would be like CMA Fest and then the Marathon, both had a lot of spaces covered up.
So the Marathon did get a separate approval, if I remember correctly. And then CMAs, they pay for spaces.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Ask for a motion for approval. Okay, all right, my mistake. Yes, just as a report. Well,
guess
let me ask
clarification,
legal, do we need to have this
The
approved?
recommendation. It says recommendation.
Yes, the commission needs to approve the parking fee waivers.
Okay,
Yes.
so I need a motion to approve the parking fee waiver. Okay, and can I have a second? All right, we have been properly moved and has a second. All those in favor? Oh, wait a minute, I think I have some unreadiness.
I just want to clarify, if I'm reading this correctly, it says, okay. All right, I think these are for 2025, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So are we ready
Yes.
to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. All right. 6.2 is a duplication of 5.5, so we've already covered that in the consent agenda. Just make sure everyone understands that there was a clerical error and it was listed 2 times. So we've already covered 6.2. 6.3, CD 17, consideration of a new loading zone on the north side of Houston Street at 508 Houston Street, not exceeding 50 feet in length, effective 5 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week, requested by Guardians of Nashville. And I have a note here, applicant plans to attend and ask for a 2-month deferral.
The applicant was here right about 2:30 and just asked for a 2-month deferral. I don't know if they have stayed in the room or not.
Okay. So do we have any questions or discussion before we decide whether or not we're going to do anything with this? Go ahead.
As a member who lives here and walks here, there's a lot of construction going on, and I think that was part of the reason for the deferral request. So I'm happy to make the motion for a 2-meeting deferral.
Okay. Second. All right, it's been moved and second that we defer this item for 2 months. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. 6.4, CD 17, consideration of a new loading zone on the east side of 12th Street at 2212 12th Street Avenue, not to exceed 80 feet in length, effective 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., 7 days a week, requested by 2214 12th South property.
Good afternoon again. So yes, as you might have heard earlier, this request was placed by the property manager. We've discussed this thoroughly, and We just can't.
Please silence your phones.
And at this time, due to the parking space limitations and also the width of the cutouts that currently exist, we just can't support the approval of the loading zone at this time. We'll be happy to reconvene at a later date. Today, we're not in favor.
I believe that the person here in support of this asked just for a limited time period from 6 to 9 a.m. Did we look at limited time periods, or did we just look at the loading zone more broadly?
We did both.
And she mentioned a lot of school traffic. This, I guess, is about 1 block east from an elementary school. Did we have any conversations with the school as to whether or not they were experiencing any traffic-related concerns?
We did not.
If there is not a loading zone here, what happens? Because it's a pretty narrow street, and I've lived pretty close to here, so I know it does get backed up.
Well, the expectation, as per the department heads, is for them to unload in the same alley that is picking up the trash. They have the trash pickup alley, which connects from the back also, and the main street. So the idea is to unload there for the time being.
I believe that the person here supporting it suggested that that was blocking in residents, though, and so that alley was not fully available.
There are 2 pathways to that alley.
So they can go down to the very end of the alley, and it would not be obstructing the driveways for the residents that have driveway access back there. So they can go all the way down to where the dumpster pickups are and then unload from there and come to the side where that FedEx truck is. They can kind of come down that way into the retail spaces. There's a walkway back there.
If I may too,
Go ahead.
I'm fairly familiar of when this kind of was going through some of the approvals. And when it was designed, there was a lot of discussion on making sure that the loading happened in the alley. I think the alley had to be improved to a certain width. There is definitely a turnout space. If you go all the way back off of Lawrence to the end of it, there is that turnout space. So, I mean, if it was in the SP to have loading there, I think that we should make sure that we are honoring what was originally proposed.
And I guess to that end, if we don't know what was in the SP, maybe we could defer this a month and find out, but I think it's worth it. But if you know, then please address it.
I don't have data on what was in the SP. But I mean, we've had meetings on, we had 2 meetings on this. We brought this up multiple times and went through the requirement and what we are looking into doing in the future, which 12 South, just FYI, is going to major redesign. We are working with Councilmember Cash to kind of help the traffic flow and parking, ride share, loading zones, RPPs. So there's an overhaul for the whole area. I think we could revisit this at a later time. It's just at this time we can't support the approval.
What's the ETA on that?
We are currently, we just finished the LiDAR data collection, so I think in the next couple of months, definitely before the year end, we would want to sit down and finalize. We do have an upcoming community meeting on July 2nd in a precinct in that area, so we'll talk to the businesses since we've already done a survey with residents. And then following that meeting, we would then sit down with the council member and then propose the solutions and the ideas and go from there.
I guess I would also encourage you to meet with the 12 South Neighborhood Association and the Belmont Hillsborough Neighborhood Association because they both meet on 12 South and are very interested in this issue. And as a member of the BHN steering committee, I have not heard anything about these public meetings. And so I think it's probably important to get in touch with those neighborhood associations and have those meetings as well, because without their buy-in, I think this is going to be a really difficult lift, which is why for many years nothing has happened.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to provide contacts for both of those. Councilmember Cash may have a better one for 12 South currently, but for BHN, I obviously can help with that directly.
And also, if I may, just a note, with the spaces there, if you look at that FedEx truck, just imagine that FedEx truck trying to fit in that curb cutout. It would kind of put, vehicles coming behind it into oncoming traffic. So if you think about the deliveries that are coming here, they're going to be majority freight trucks, which will be sticking out in the lane of traffic. Just one thing to kind of take into consideration there.
And the purpose of that cutout is just for fire, is that right?
That one is right there. It's a fire lane, but ahead of it is parking spaces, same width.
If I may, I'd like to point out, I took the photos out there about a week ago or so. There are other parking pull-offs that are not marked for fire lanes. They're all 6 feet in width, and they were 100% occupied, either with a parked vehicle or a work truck or work van. And the work vans, they have a really hard time fitting in that 6-foot space. I can't imagine trying to load or unload a delivery truck in that confined space. They're going to either be on the sidewalk or they're going to be encroaching into the street.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have two questions. The first is in researching the SP, if you could clarify, are we looking to see if the loading zone was required to be in the alley or to be on 12th? And the second question is relative to the comments that we heard from the property manager. How many residents are in this building that she referred to as her tenants?
We have 18 retail residents, and we'll probably end up having about 10 or 11 office tenants that are upstairs. Where that FedEx truck is, that is a fire lane in between the two buildings too, so they can't technically, are supposed to park there.
Ma'am, can you please come up to the microphone so the people watching can hear you? Thank you.
So that's a fire lane.
State your name again, please.
My name's Misty Keenan, property manager of Ashwood Development on 12th South. Just reiterate that FedEx truck is not supposed to be parked there. That's a fire access alleyway there between the two buildings. And the difficulties with us having to put some of the tractor trailers into the back of the building is just that there's nowhere to turn around. So they can pull in, but they can't pull out, or they have to back in, and it's just been very difficult for them to do that. So, and the access from the back of the building up around the alley has not been easy either. So what we're finding, although we have tried to advise some, the residents have kind of kicked back on us and pushing back, trying to ask us not to have the trucks back there. And then the drivers just end up ignoring instructions and park in the middle of the street on 12th Avenue. And that's exactly what he was able to witness that day that blocked traffic.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm unsure of the process. Oh, thank you for that. Just to clarify, so your tenants are all retail. When you reference residents, these are residents of other buildings that you don't manage.
Correctly, our building butts right up to the alley, and so it's our building, the alley, and then residents, their garages butt right up to the alley as well. So when those trailers come in there, it just blocks their traffic. And so we've required the 6 to 9, which a lot of people leave the office or leave their home for work between 6 and 9. So we were trying to do that to keep the traffic off 12th Avenue, but then it blocks residents getting out of their homes along the alleyway, because their garage backs up to the alleyway.
And I believe in your comments previously, you indicated that there was not a requirement for loading zone in your SP. Could you clarify that?
I am not aware of any requirement in the building process of that being required as for our building permit or design. It's not in anything we have. So if it was a requirement, I'm not for sure how we got approval without it being designed in it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it sounds to me like it's a little unclear, some like conflicting statements on that alley. If we could maybe, I would support a deferral for 1 month and then just come back with pictures as to what's going on in that alley. And if there is a place to load and unload without blocking a driveway, I mean, people may have to go a direction they don't want, and that I think is acceptable. But if we can't actually not block their garage, then that could potentially be worth knowing.
I can provide you with alley dimensions and a photo of the turnaround. The southern end of the alley is jammed with waste containers and portlets and other miscellaneous construction materials. But, you know, it's my contention that if you can get a garbage truck back there to serve those dumpsters, you should be able to get a delivery truck in and out of there too. The alley is not a narrow alley.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I live on an alley and plenty of truck drivers tell me they can't get down there, and I see plenty of trucks bigger than theirs going up and down it. So, but I think it would just be helpful for the record to have that information. And then I guess to the extent there's construction trash back there, maybe a Hub Nashville complaint would be warranted.
I have a question. Are there crosswalks in this area?
I believe so.
At the roundabout.
There's one at the roundabout. The roundabout is right behind or right in front of that first picture. The first picture has the pickup truck. That's the cutout that we're talking about, and the roundabout would be right in front of it. That's where the crosswalk is.
So this would potentially be causing more of the issue that we've been talking about today, where you have vehicles parked on the street that are blocking people from being able to see cars coming when they're walking out in the crosswalk.
That is correct. And also it poses danger for oncoming traffic with other vehicles just, sticking out to the main road, and they would need to cross a double yellow line, which we never approve anything that would cause that. So, or recommend anything that would cause that. So, yeah.
Any more discussion? So I've heard two different things. The possibility of deferring this for a month to get more information, or do we want to just vote on it? I'll take a motion.
I would move to defer 1 month and just so we can check out the alley and the SP.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. I will ask that try to come back to us with suggestions on what can be done there. Next item is 6.5 CD 17, consideration of a new valet lane on 9th Avenue near Division, valet for 3 spaces, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., requested by Metropolis. Go ahead.
Yes. So this is a valet request that came from the Metropolis operator. They were requesting the spaces as you mentioned earlier. We just recently, around, I believe it was June or July last year, approved parking spaces on Division. Mm-hmm. This is part of an old Division, and also on Gleaves, I believe. So this is part of that area where parking is scarce, and we just were not in support of the valet, especially coming from the busy street as is Division, making a right-hand turn onto 9th Avenue South. Having somebody valeting there just didn't seem like a safe approach. Just for the record, when I informed the valet operator about this, they were okay with the refusal. So just for record keeping, what happened, what we found is that going back to look up either a loading zone or valet approval has become difficult if you're looking into the past. So going through this channel, we want to make sure that it's on record, and if somebody wants to go back to this 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it would be noted that there was a request and what the approval or denial was.
Are there other parking areas in this immediate area? Parking lots?
Yes, there are parking lots, yes.
Okay. Questions?
Do we have any update on like digitizing our curbs so we can kind of see where these parking locations are and loading zones and valet lanes?
I am not the manager for that, but I can tell you that as far as I know, currently you're working on loading zones only, and that's pertaining to downtown Broadway specifically. That would be Mr. Brent Schultz with Smart Parking, Smart Loading Zone program. I think there should be an update to it at some point soon. It doesn't affect this area at this moment.
Be nice to be able to see that as some of these come forward in the future, just so that way we kind of have a clearer picture of what is going on around. But that's all I had.
Any other questions? Concerns? Okay, NDOT has asked that we not pass this. Can I have a motion either way?
I make a motion to support NDOT's recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is passed. 7.0, unfinished business. We have any? Okay. New business, 8.0. Any new business? Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to speak for just a second. I know that some friends of Ms. Dobbins were here. It has seemed to a lot of people as if we are not taking these complaints of people feeling unsafe seriously. Ms. Dobbins died in a crosswalk that people had complained was unsafe. This past weekend, a crosswalk on my street, which for almost 2 years I've been telling NDOT is not safe, somebody was hit in. And what is a deep twist of irony, the people who bought my house from me in 2018 emailed their now councilwoman, Ms. Ewing, to complain about their street being unsafe. It was my email to Councilmember Pulley on that very issue that then led me to be on the IDB and then eventually run for council. So these are not new feelings that people are having. We talk about 21st and how it feels bad between Division and Lyle, and it doesn't feel right now in the city, I think, to a lot of people, that these concerns are being taken really seriously. And we see that because we see council members here month after month begging for stop signs and begging for more markings at crosswalk and just coming to this commission because they're not getting the relief that they seek from the department, because in many cases the department is being very dogged and hewing to a manual without actually feeling what it feels like to be in the space and using what is common sense to know that these are unsafe. And I would just beg the department to please take these complaints seriously, because when we don't, people actually do die. And the threat of getting sued because of some theoretical lawsuit that has never been brought is frankly pales in comparison to the lives that are being lost. So I just want to say that. I want to say I'm sorry to Ms. Dobbins and her family. That never should have happened. We never should have let it go that far. And we know that there are dozens and dozens of crosswalks all over the city that have the same problem.
Thank you, Council Lady. Hal Balthrop, Chief Engineer at NDOT. It is regrettable that there was a fatality last evening, and I will tell you the staff takes it very seriously, and they do reprioritize projects accordingly when there is an incident such as what occurred last evening. The department, again, has a dedicated staff that takes their responsibility very seriously, and the help that we need from council and the mayor's office is to have budget to do more with what we can. And that's what we do. So trying not to be defensive here or making excuses, but I want to assure everyone on the commission that the department is very serious about safety, and that is our number one priority as we look at projects and design results.
Has there been any consideration, since I still say it over and over again, I'm new to Nashville, but has there been any consideration to doing anything like a dashboard where the work that you're doing can be seen, and if there are issues, that it's not just a situation of, we know there's a problem, yes, you know there's a problem, the community knows there's an issue, but if there's not any way for people to be able to see, this is what you're doing based on the complaints that are out there, it's always going to be a perception that your people are not doing enough. So I ask, is there a way to do some type of a dashboard to make it so that this complaint came in, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to do?
I think the short answer is yes, there's data that's available. What I would suggest the commission consider, we're happy to come in and do some training or some demonstration to you of how we evaluate information, especially fatalities and crashes, and how that informs the decisions that are made, that the department makes on project recommendations.
And that would be useful, but what I'm talking about is something that any John Q. citizen can go to an NDOT link and be able to see, this is what's being done with these things.
There is data on our website, yes. Now, I can't qualify that it's going to meet every need or expectation, but what we represent on there is what we feel like is information that could be useful to individuals looking for such information. We're happy to reevaluate what we post online if there's something missing that even the commission feels like would be helpful to the public. We're certainly open to that, but again, our staff takes very seriously the responsibility that we carry. There are guidelines, and I understand that sometimes it appears that engineering judgment or common sense is not applied, but it is. I can assure you it is. I know firsthand it is. But in terms of content to the public to see, there is the hub process. When individuals submit things in hub, they're given a response that it's been received. It's evaluated on its merits, whether there's action required or necessary on that, and that information is also available to the public. So I'm not real, unless you have a specific metric or something that you think would be helpful, I may be able to answer that, but we do have information on our website.
Let me come back to you. Do you think that there is enough information out there? And if not, what could be done to improve it?
It's a great question. I think we have plenty of information on what we're doing. That's out there. That can be tracked. Individual hub complaints could be requested as public information, and that can be gathered. It's not automatically out there, but what we see over and over again is for years and years and years and years, people complain about the same things. And we're told, oh, well, there's not budget, but quite literally all they're asking for is a stop sign. And they come here and this commission hears it, and it's so evident that a stop sign makes sense. And it takes residents coming here and talking about how unsafe they feel to get that action done. And it just shouldn't be that hard to say, yes, we hear you. This is unsafe. We're going to fix it. I mean, we also have this issue where the data that we have, we rely on fatalities. Nobody should have to die in order to get a stop sign or a blinking light to warn somebody that a hidden crosswalk is coming up. But that's what we rely on. We rely on fatalities. We don't do anything until somebody actually dies or is in the hospital. And you smile, but I mean, I can give you tons of examples around town where people begged for years for things. And it took a teacher getting hit, walking a kid across a crosswalk to get a stop sign put in a place that everybody knew was unsafe on Edge Hill. Right? There's Ms. Dobbins crosswalk. People have complained now that somebody's died. I'm sure that we'll do something to make it better, but we shouldn't have to let somebody die to fix it and to take it seriously. And what I think this commission has seen over and over is it does feel as if that is where we're at, and it shouldn't be that way. We should be working together on safety measures. And if there are specific budget asks that the department is not getting, then that's something the department should share. But everything the department is sharing is that they are getting their budget. And so if that's the case, then the question is, why is safety not our first priority for everything?
Well, it is, Council Lady, not to be, defensive to you. If you're aware of situations that you've heard repeatedly that we have not addressed, we're certainly open to get that information from you. I do think it would be helpful to the commission for a brief presentation on how we evaluate projects and what constitutes action. And we do bring those things to you that are under your purview for your consideration. So,
I think this is just like the conflict of a commission like this, where we have lay people in working with experts. And I think what we are saying is there is a disconnect between what is the hard and fast rule that you guys are making your determinations based off of, and what people are actually experiencing. And are you overlooking something? Is the entire engineering field, are you guys overlooking something? Not saying that we know more than you all, but there is clearly something that's going on here that is incorrect in some aspects in terms of how people perceive something.
Understood. And some of the metrics that we follow are reductions in events such as what occurred last evening. We do have that information. Again, I think it might be helpful for you to see.
It seems counterintuitive to us when we see someone speeding. We're like, okay, we want to see, this thing. So is the department working with other, how can we be a leader in this space to, come up with
to help out?
Yeah, to come up with, more creative solutions and not continuing to follow the same thing over and over. I don't know.
I think
Maybe
we
I'm
are
not
making,
explaining that the best way.
Well, I think we are making progress. Are we going to affect every location where there's a potential for someone to be injured or killed? No, but I think it's an ongoing effort. There's always, unfortunately, going to be incidences that occur despite all best practice and good intention. All I can say is I know the staff is dedicated to safety and performing accordingly. There is budget available, but there's so many things that need to be done. And so when you prioritize projects with the available budget you have, there are going to be instances where things occur outside of those defined projects and we do reshift some of our priorities accordingly. So again, we do have metric information, some Vision Zero information on fatalities and that kind of thing that we can bring and show that we are making progress. We certainly want to avoid any and all fatalities where possible. But the city, again, not making excuses, we are committed to it, but the city has grown at such a rate and the volume of traffic has grown at such a rate, it is a bit of a challenge to know what to focus on sometimes without, the data that we get, the events and occurrences, the crashes that occur, and the budget we have. It's a balance of all these things to try to know what to do to best serve the public.
I guess my other question would be, since you've started working in this field, how many times has the MTDCU, how many times has that
close enough.
Been updated?
I don't know. Do you know that, Andrew?
You're talking about the MUTCD.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the last
version.
update on it was December of last year. It
So-
is not updated very often. It's a federal document that tends to be updated about every 10 years or so. But the last update on that was in the past year.
And we follow that.
So things have shifted since you've started from what best practices were and things
and
that have,
yes.
yeah.
In most industries, as you're probably aware, that happens as standards change and evolve, and products and approaches and designs evolve as well toward hopefully improvement And yes, so our latest projects will follow the latest version. Now, some of the projects that were performed before might have been under previous versions of the MUTCD, but I don't know that there was significant changes from version to version that would have affected any of our projects to speak of. I mean, if you're interested in that, we can certainly do a presentation on what those differences are.
I have 2 points.
Yes, sir.
One, how long would it take you to give us a overview of how you go through and make decisions on what projects need to be dealt with right away? Is there a triage process or something like that? So first, how long would it take for you to give us that kind of an overview?
Yes, sir.
Second thing is, when you come to give us that overview, I would like for you to bring us information on the 10 worst sites that you're dealing with right now and what needs to be done to deal with them, so that hopefully some of these areas that I'm hearing are problems we should be hearing about, and then we should be hearing from you what you're doing or have done to try to alleviate that. So if you would answer those 2 questions for me.
Okay, 30 minutes overview. You may want some follow-up from that, but I think we could accomplish a presentation within 30 minutes to kind of give you a sense, or give the commission a sense of how we evaluate and define or determine projects. In terms of the most challenging locations, again, we have our projects that are prioritized. We have objectives of those projects. Some are informed, again, by crash numbers, injuries, fatalities. All I can say is I think we can come up with a list of those locations and what our actions are. Now, whether they're going to be consistent with what y'all may be familiar with in locations.
It should be a start.
Okay, it would be a start, but we would like to hear from you all and anyone in the public that we're not aware of. If there are locations, we certainly should be with the crash history and the information that we have available, but there may be some that you are aware of that are recurring or chronic that we're not aware of.
If you'll hold that for a moment. Now, a question to legal. Would this need to be in a separate meeting, or could this be part of a regular meeting for us?
Well, if you're all going to be here, you have to have it in a regular meeting where it's publicly noticed and the public can participate. So I would advise that you just make it part of a regular meeting, unless you want to have 2 meetings in 1 month or something like that.
And we're happy to accommodate whatever the commission would like.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask the pleasure of the commissioners. Would you rather this be done in a single meeting, or would you like us to have 2 meetings to deal with this in a month?
So one of the points I was going to make, and this kind of leads into that, there are other boards and commissions that are also kind of looking at traffic safety. There's the Vision Zero Advisory, and we've had some of their members come talk to us before. There's the Bicycle Pedestrian Advocacy. Like, you all are doing these presentations in multiple different places. Those 2 don't have recordings, so we can't follow up and watch them. So maybe one option that we could do is have a joint session with everybody. So that way you all can just do one. You have a big room of advocates to help figure out and learn.
Okay.
And also, hopefully, with the recording changes in here, that will help them do that. But I think prioritizing getting that information out to the public would be really helpful.
Okay. Vice Chair, do you have a response, or does that sound favorable to you? Or
That sounds fine. How about, could we do that in about 3 months? That way we would be able to be back in this room.
And I would suggest you entertain, if we're going to bring everyone in, that you might, for that period of time, have a subsequent special meeting, if it pleases the commission.
Yeah, and just to that too, council chambers is often available for meetings as well, and it has a lot more capacity. So if we're gonna call a special meeting, it's worth asking the council office if that room could be available, because it's obviously set up to record, and there are 40 seats to begin with, and the AV equipment to do a presentation.
That's a great idea.
So what do we need to do to make that happen?
You would all need to vote on a potential date, or provide Mr. Smith with 3 dates. That might be good, that he could try to find a room for availability. and then we would notice a special meeting and the location, timely, so that everyone would know. But I'm not totally clear. Are you suggesting that BPAC and Vision Zero and Traffic and Parking have one special meeting together?
Yeah, I think it's a waste of staff's time to do it 3 times instead of just doing one report to all of us. And if
Okay.
it's the type of report where it is kind of a back and forth and just learning, it's not necessarily something that has to be actioned on. So I think that is totally appropriate to have a special call meeting, who can show up, record it, so that way everyone has access to it.
And may I offer two? Sorry, Council Lady, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if we are going to do 3 and we got to find the space, then would it be possible to make a motion that staff come back with potential dates next month when we know the room and other committees would also
Sure.
potentially be available?
Yes, I think that would work as well.
So make the finalization an agenda item for next meeting then, Council Lady, is that what you're suggesting? Okay, we
Yes,
can
so-
do that. I would also
So-
like to, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. You're going to have to get with the BPAC Commission
Right.
as well as
VZAC, yeah,
BPAC, VZAC.
that's right.
TPC, all the
That's right,
acronyms.
right, acronyms everywhere.
And get with them to get their schedules and then provide those dates at the July meeting, and then the commission can vote on the best date for
Yes.
everybody.
And I'd like to offer too, that NDOT will come up with some agenda items to present to all 3 groups, and then ask if you have additional agenda items you could offer us to add to the agenda, so we can post a full foray of everything we're going to cover at this potential special meeting. Okay?
I do have a separate question. Thank you for that. Councilmember Coopin had mentioned publicly today that he was trying to work with y'all on raised crosswalks
Yes.
in downtown. What he had mentioned was also that, to get to 90% design, it was going to be maybe mid-July. What's the normal lead time to do a raised crosswalk?
It's a good question. It depends on the location. There's a lot of factors that can come into play, like cross-section, yes, go ahead, Andrew, please offer.
I've had a little bit of experience installing raised crosswalks out on Madison Station Boulevard. And one of the challenges with raised crosswalks is, what are you going to do with your stormwater? Because a raised crosswalk that sits by itself is going to catch water. You've got to incorporate, you've got to design for stormwater management. Otherwise, you're going to have a little lake by your raised crosswalk. What we did on Madison Station Boulevard is incorporate adjacent stormwater inlets. So it's not just a matter of building a raised crosswalk, it's raised crosswalk and stormwater.
Yeah, and maybe this could be a topic to figure out for that meeting to kind of talk through.
Okay.
Timeline of certain projects. I mean, I know
Sure.
in our industry, we have a specific timeline for jobs that we do. And whatever is part of that timeline, and we have to meet those dates. And so
Okay.
hopefully that we can kind of understand better of this specific project has this type of lead time. Sometimes we'll beat it, sometimes it may take a little bit longer because of issues like stormwater.
Sure.
But those types of numbers would be great.
Okay, fair. Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have 3 comments. The first is I want to thank fellow commissioners for this conversation, and council member for her recommendation for a meeting and an informational session. I truly support that. I think that's a great recommendation. Kind of in the spirit of today's conversation, and as council member has raised, the safety being certainly the foundation of this commission, I want to share some stories and ask for some consideration or input, not necessarily today, but at another time, regarding 2 issues. One is when pedestrian cross signals become inoperable, what is the method or process for an alert notification that goes somewhere within Metro for that to be, for the professionals to be aware of that and to take action? And I'd like to share a story about that. On May 17th, a Saturday night, I was out for a walk, And I came through downtown and I came north on 12th, headed to Broadway. You might be familiar with that intersection. It's where Whole Foods, the McDonald's, the large gas station, extremely high traffic, vehicular and pedestrian. I come around the corner. This was, again, May 17th, so between our last meeting and this meeting, all of the streetlights were out and all the pedestrian signals were out. Major intersection on a Saturday night. You can imagine my panic. I quickly called 911. I texted Councilmember Coop in District 19. He was extremely responsive. He suggested I put it in Hub. I did all of the official notifications and waited and waited and waited. Councilmember Coopin also stepped in. There was no response. Within 45 minutes, there was no response. So cars were still flying down Broadway. Cars were trying to cross on 12th. Pedestrians were on all four corners trying to get across, not to mention the scooters and so forth. I went into Whole Foods and notified them that we were working on it, and the young woman working at the cash checkout area said she was fully aware and that the pedestrian signals had been out, she said, for a week, and that she herself was scared to, I'm not sure how her mode of transportation, but she herself as an employee was afraid for her life. I assured her that we do care. I assured her that Councilmember Coopin cares and that we were working on it. I waited 45 minutes, there was no response. So I went on my way. I don't know, I came back down the next day. Thankfully, the lights were working, the traffic lights and the pedestrian signals. I don't know how long it took. I don't know for sure that the pedestrian signals had been out for a week. I also know that that whole intersection had been repaved. All of the crosswalk striping was gone. Some of that we had just gotten put in about 8 months ago. As NDOT well knows, that was a major community project for us to get striping there to begin with. It was all gone because TDOT, it's a TDOT road, so I imagine it was TDOT, for whatever reason, had just repaved that entire block. So my question, I appreciate your indulgence in this long story, but I do think it brings home a few points relative to the conversation we've been having today. So really my question is, what is the process for notification, awareness, alert, when pedestrian signals and traffic signals are out? And how long do we have to wait for a response?
I'll take a stab at it. At times, traffic signals will go on flash if there's an equipment fault or failure. It'll go on flash, and when that happens, the PED signals go dark because there's not a protected pedestrian phase.
Let me just clarify, these were not flash. These were out totally.
These are out, okay.
These were no flash.
Okay.
That situation you're referring to, Andrew, that was a different situation on Broadway and 9th, which I haven't even brought up yet, but this was a different occurrence.
So, mate, that's what I was going to ask if it was, and Hal Balthrop, chief engineer. I think in situations like that, yes, Hub is helpful, but calling 911 or OEM is better.
I did call him 911.
I heard you say that. So there should have been some quicker response, even probably from other metro agencies that would be notified in those circumstances. What I wanted to share with the commission, NDOT has just reestablished what we call a Nashville Area Utility Council, particularly. The purpose of that is to all occupiers of the right-of-way, whether it be NES, Piedmont Duke, Metro Water, all the telecoms. We meet monthly, and one of the objectives is to do better coordination on our projects. TDOT comes as well. Harpeth Valley Utility District, Madison Suburban. We're trying to capture everyone that has utilization of the right-of-way so we can better plan projects. Certainly emergencies occur, but to your point on the resurfacing that eradicated some displaced crossings and striping, we're trying to work with those agencies to better plan our capital projects where we're not on top of each other or undoing what the previous utility or whomever comes through and does. It has been a little challenging, I'll admit, because a lot of the telecoms are very careful about how they share information on their long-range projects because they're fearful of competition, knowing where they're going to be, I guess. But we are making strides in that regard, where NDOT is sharing our 5-year capital resurfacing and capital projects. Again, so those utilities are put on notice, and this is especially true for the Choose How You Move program, because one of the things we're working toward on this effort is to avoid delaying projects and having cost overruns by waiting for utilities to reallocate or relocate if they have to, as in conjunction with our projects. So I just wanted to share briefly, don't mean to go on, but we are doing as much coordination and plan to do more with everyone that's in the right of way to avoid some of these circumstances like you described, to better plan and prepare and be partners in whatever's going on in the public right of way.
You had a second point.
I do. Thank you, Vice Chair. On a safety-related matter, but a different example. We were talking earlier about the block on Broadway between Lisle and West End. So I have personally experienced within that area, as well as just last week, 2 weeks ago, on 21st, between Broadway and along the Vanderbilt Medical Center, incidences where the sidewalk is closed, rightfully so, but the sidewalk is closed for infrastructure repair due to a project. In one case, it was for construction of the new high-rise and U.S. Bank building on Broadway, right in Midtown. The second situation occurred relative to construction of Vanderbilt's new parking garage at the medical center and the necessity to close the sidewalk for a portion of time, which is, again, certainly understandable. However, as a pedestrian, as you walk along the sidewalk abruptly closes with signage that says sidewalk closed. There is nowhere to go. Well, there's 2 choices that the pedestrian is provided with. The first choice is to turn around and go back to where you came from to find a crosswalk that has a ped signal or striping. The second choice, which of course is not what we want, but happens, is pedestrians step into traffic. They step into the street and they cross the street because the sidewalks are being closed mid-block and there's nowhere to go. So my recommendation or comment would be for NDOT to consider some type of signage at the previous crossing to notify pedestrians that halfway through this block, this sidewalk is going to abruptly close and you're not going to have anywhere to go. So that you don't go up there and have to turn around and walk back.
I can speak to that. Metro does have an interdepartmental multimodal closure advisory committee where we look at proposed closures that are going to last a week or longer. And we look at their traffic control plan, at how they're diverting traffic, including pedestrian traffic and foot traffic. In your case, there should have been a pedestrian detour sign so that when the pedestrian walks and he's approaching the site, you should have encountered a pedestrian detour sign telling you to cross here so that you could get around that obstacle. And I'm sorry you didn't see that. If you'll share with me the location of that and whether that's still something that's ongoing, we'll address that.
Sure. Thank you so much. There was no additional sign, I assure you that, and it was right along the medical center, so there were a lot of pedestrians. It's since been reopened, but it's twice that I've personally encountered it. I'm sure others of us have as well, so if we can make sure that those other notification signage is in place. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to the meeting, if I'm understanding correctly, we need to have a motion to set up this meeting, or what are our next steps to try to get this ball moving, or this train moving?
The next steps for the meeting
Yes,
that we talked about earlier?
yes,
I think the next steps are that NDOT is going to get with the other commissions and find dates and present 3 dates to this commission in the July meeting. And then
Okay.
this commission will vote on which date they choose.
okay,
And they'll also make sure that there's a location available for a large meeting such as
Okay.
this one.
I just wanted to make sure that that was going to continue to move and it didn't die for lack of information.
It'll be on next week's agenda.
Okay,
I mean, next
Next
month,
month,
excuse me.
okay.
Yes.
all right.
Why not?
Do we have anything else to discuss?
There is something else. So as a reminder, due to the planned upgrades in this room.
Yes,
To the AV system, this commission will be meeting at the MNPD East Precinct Community Room that's on Trinity Lane. So don't come here next month and don't come here in August.
okay. And since I've been here, it's been the tradition of this committee that the member from MNPD does the last item on the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
All in
Second.
favor? All right, we're done.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.